All right, so we recording. Let's get right to it.
We live, we lit, we ready to go.
What's good, family?
Welcome to the I Found a Friend podcast, where we're your friend helping you navigate life's journeys. It's your host, Eric Diggs.
Jordan Diggs.
John Diggins.
All right.
Jonathan Diggs, y'all.
But yeah, today we just gonna get right to it. So it's May, and for those of you who don't know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we want to come down and talk about mental health. And no, we don't proclaim to be experts on the topic, but our goal is that through our shared experiences that we're going to share with you guys, that you guys could find some relatability and also, some tangible solutions that you guys can use as you guys navigate your own journeys. One thing that we noticed is like ever since COVID, there's definitely been an increase in mental health issues / awareness. And so we wanted to dive into maybe why do we think that's the case? Because it's something that's definitely affecting our generation more than ever. And I know, like, me personally, I've had my own fair share of mental health battles, and my brothers have as well. And it's okay to go through, like, mental health battles. It's just like anything else, like getting sick or, getting physically hurt. You just have to take the proper steps to get back healthy again. But for some reason, it's taught if you have a mental health issue, then it's weak when you go ask for help. And we want to break that stigmatism. And so for me, I want to be really vulnerable, and I want to open up with a poem that I recently wrote.
You write poetry?
Okay, E. Diggs, get into it. John also writes poetry too, so.
What's so funny, bro?
Nah, it's just funny because I didn't know that you wrote poetry. And then Jordan, he said that. I don't know if I told you I write poetry.
Yeah. And sometimes I do it just so I can process. I haven't done it in a while, so sometimes I either write songs or different things like that. But I started going to therapy like last month for the first time, and that's huge. Growing up in Black family, strong Christian. A lot of times, like, therapy is like looked down upon, but for me, that's been a catalyst to help me, process things that I didn't know I needed to process and help me do it in a healthy way. And so for me, just to give you a little insight, like what's going on in my mind at the time, because after this, writing this poetry, going to therapy, processing things in a healthy way and getting down to the root of things, I finally was able to start feeling back in a healthy way again. And so I haven't really titled this one, but it goes like this. I got things in my past that I haven't dealt with. I got things in my past I haven't healed from. I got things in my past that are no longer a myth. I got things in my past reflecting who I become. I've been taught to suppress and move on. I've been taught to forget and you're strong. I've been taught to deflect and it's gone. I've been taught to deny that you're wrong. Ironically, my past is projecting into my present. The things I suppressed are coming to the surface. I'm boiling over and it's something I can't prevent. And now the pain is starting to question my purpose. I've been conflicted with a wide range of emotions. I've been starting fires on my left and my right. I've been confused about all my previous devotions. I've been quick to deflect and start a fight. But now that I'm aware, the damage has already been done. Relationships broken, dreams lost, passions diluted, more people hurt. And I will have to face my past and reconcile what I've done. Although I fear that may require energy I no longer have to exert. I got things in my past I need to acknowledge. I got things in my past I need to recognize as real. I got things in my past that are beyond the need for a bandage. I got things in my past I need to take the time to properly heal.
Oh, we got to give those snaps to Eric Diggs. First of all, I kind of want to comment on that poem. I think that's powerful. And it's just like, I feel like with life a lot, we can kind of just like move forward without even processing or thinking that like what all has happened to us. And I was just even thinking about your story, Eric, and how like you grew up playing football pretty much all your life, right? And then like recently that dream, because you kind of dreamed of going like big leagues and stuff, and that dream kind of, got taken away from you. And that's like a lot to process in itself. So I don't know. It's just like, I feel like we can just like move through life without even like realizing, all of this stuff that's happening to us and how it's affecting us.
Yeah, that's real. I know a lot of student athletes, former athletes struggle with that transition. I was talking to a former NFL player, Derek Morgan, on Sunday, And one thing we was talking about is like, regardless of when you stop playing football, like it's inevitable. Or whatever sport you're going to play, eventually you're going to stop playing. You can't play it forever, and you're going to have to make that transition. And a lot of athletes struggle with knowing when to exactly let go. And so it is huge, like that transition, like finding out a new purpose in life and finding something else to put all that energy and passion towards has definitely been a journey within itself.
So what like inspired you to write this poem? Like, you know?
A lot of times, like, you know, instead of using my words in a negative way towards other people, because when you're going through a mental battle, like everything is uncertain. And I've been working on processing things in a healthier way. And so I don't want to suppress, but at the same time, I don't want to explode on other people, because I have done that in our relationships and things that I have to reconcile, which is all a part of the healing process within the self. So I was like, okay, let me write poetry because I do like writing. And it's just an outlet, honestly. And I haven't done it in a while, but it was cool to like write that and then feel like, okay, now it's not a part of me. I don't have to take that with me anymore. And so now I can share my story and hopefully somebody else can get help from it.
Would you say there's healing or like closure in being able to write something down?
I would, because it brings awareness to a situation for me personally. And once you bring awareness to something, now you see it. And then after that, once you see it, now it's like, okay, now I have the decision to decide how I'm going to move forward. And so for me, there is a freedom in saying, okay, I got this out of me. It's a part from me. Now I got to decide, how am I going to show up in my future relationships? How am I going to show up in my future, like career, future outings, whatever I'm doing in life? How am I going to show up? Am I going to take my past and bring that with me and allow that to affect me, how I'm going to show up? Or am I going to say, this is removed from me now. Now I'm going to choose to take a new stance in life.
What about you, John? I know you've gotten into poetry recently. Can you explain like how that happened and why?
It got sparked by a particular event that I wasn't too happy about. And I just had a bunch of ideas just floating around in my head. So I got home and I just started to write. And then like had a whole page filled up. And I was like, dang. And it kind of started like making sense too. And I tweaked it and I sent it to some of my friends and they're like, yo, this is actually really good. But poetry for me is a way to like vent and express myself. It definitely helps me with closure. I like journaling. That helps me a lot. And poetry is just a way to make it kind of fancy. There's really no rules to poetry, which is the thing that I love.
Facts.
But it's just one of those ways that I feel like I have to express myself. I don't do it often, but when I feel in the mood, like it comes very naturally and very easily. I'm looking at a poem that I wrote called Perspective and Communication. And it says, I can't be mad at you for the things I never communicated. I assume my perspective was misunderstood. You thought it was all fabricated. I never vocalized what was causing me pain while thinking my sentiments fell on deaf ears. But to help you see my outlook on life, I'll share my vision and you'll see clear. And that was from just understanding, like, there were a lot of things that I felt like should have been known, should have been understood that weren't, because I didn't communicate. And if I didn't share my perspective through communication, then it's like I can't expect somebody to see the things that I see because they're not me. So rather than not being silent and shutting up about it, I should speak out, communicate where I'm at and how I feel about certain things.
That's good. I know you texted me earlier today. You're like, Jordan, I feel like you're a verbal processor, and I feel like writing down or even talking to people is a way of verbally kind of processing and communicating what you're going through. So yeah, I definitely find like value in that. I know one of my friends told me that she journals a lot, and she was like, Jordan, I recommend journaling. And even like processing, but even like gratitude journaling, because I feel like sometimes we achieve so much in life, but we don't give ourselves enough credit.
True.
It's just like, congratulations. Like, I'm grateful that I graduated college. Like, that's a huge accomplishment, but I feel like it happened and then we just kind of like moved on. Like, okay, what's next? But we don't like sit down to reflect all the things we have accomplished. We don't give ourselves enough grace. And I think that's also a part of the mental health process, is like learning to give ourselves grace and being kind to ourselves and, gratitude.
Yeah. And I like what you said. Like, a lot of times we accomplish these things and then we're so quick to move on to the next thing. Right there, slow down. What's the rush? I feel like in our generation, there's so much comparison going on, and there's so much pressure put on us to succeed and we got to succeed right now. And then you go on social media and you see everybody else living the life that you want to live, but that's really just their highlights, but you don't know that. And you're comparing yourself to that each and every day. Like, that can't be healthy within itself. What do you guys think? Do y'all think that social media is something that has led to an increase in mental health awareness or issues? Would you guys put that as a catalyst?
All the studies would indicate that I've heard, I don't have any pulled up on me, but the studies that I've heard about indicate that social media is toxic for the mental health. And I think a big part of it is that comparison piece. There's the quote that's common that says comparison is the thief of joy. And social media just leads you to comparing. I see somebody who's 21, 22 my age saying, oh, I made $10,000 today, or I'm in a league, you know what I'm saying, with a multi-million-dollar contract, and now I feel like I'm behind. And it's like, I can't enjoy the things that I've done, you know, graduating college, you know, having my own YouTube channel, having a podcast, et cetera, because it's like, it's not enough. But who am I comparing myself to? Am I comparing myself to an unrealistic standard, the top 1% of people my age? And it's like, it makes you feel like it's a lot more common than it really is because you see it on your For You page or Explore page so frequently, but it's not real. It's not real life. You're comparing yourself to a fictitious standard.
And to add on, I feel like another thing that social media does is it like kind of gets you isolated because, you know, you're like, okay, well, I have all these friends on social media, but you're not really communicating and like hanging out with people in real life. And so that isolation can lead to like depression and anxiety and all of this comparison because, you know, you're just by yourself looking at how exciting and happy everyone's life is. But in reality, they're picking up the phone, smiling to the camera, and then putting it down and going through real life stuff. And I'm saying that because like I create content and that's what I do sometimes. I'm not even feel the best that day, but like when I pick up the phone, I'm smiling, I'm energetic, I'm putting up forward a brave face. But that's not always reality 100% of the time. And going back to something Eric asked, he was asking like, has social media also like helped bring awareness to mental health? And I would say yes, it has. I feel like I'm really on motivational TikTok right now, so I listen to like a lot of motivational people, and I feel like people are becoming more open with like their mental health problems, and I feel like there's therapists getting on like sharing tips and advice, and I think it's so important because suicide is like a leading cause of death for people our age, teenagers, young adults. So it's definitely needed to talk about because people are looking for help. They need help some way. And I feel like social media is just so accessible for us to get help through that way.
That's real.
Yeah.
I love like what you said, like we need to share our experiences. We need to share what we've gone through, our struggles and our successes, our struggles, how we overcome them, our struggles and our shortcomings, because there's power in relatability. There's power in community. There's power in knowing that you're not alone in something. And so if you keep everything to yourself, you can feel isolated and you can feel like you're the only one. But in reality, as we're talking, like, no, you're not the only one. No matter how good it looks on the outside, everybody's dealing with their own personal battles. But the more that we can share with each other, we can help carry each other's burdens throughout this process.
That's facts. The first thing I do whenever like I feel like I'm tanking right now is I get off social media. And I remember I took like a month-long social media break. I realized I was able to enjoy the moment a lot more. I realized I was a lot more grateful. I realized life was a lot slower. I wasn't caught up in other people's problems. So frequently we get caught up in issues that don't relate to us. And then that adds on to the things that we already have in our personal life. I remember after that month, I get back on social media. The first thing that I see is Takeoff is dying. Like Takeoff died the first day. I'm like, yeah, be for real, bro. Like, I'm cool. I'm having a great break. I'm finally ready to be back. And now I got terrible news. Like, RIP Takeoff. But it's just like, dang, I wouldn't have known about that, or I wouldn't have really cared if I wasn't on social media. It's just got us caught up in this thing that's so fake. Mm-hmm. Like these highlight reels, like Jordan was saying. Like, it's not real.
Yeah, I think that's so real. You don't know how much what you consume impacts your mental until like you're like down in a funk. But yeah, I would say that like I don't know. I was watching one show one time and the show was super depressing. You know how I felt after I watched the show? Depressed. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't be consuming this type of content. Maybe I should be consuming things that are uplifting, that are motivating, you know? So, and taking a break from social media, that's real too. Because I've been like off Instagram. And I don't know, you just feel so much more free because I feel like even when I had Instagram on my phone, I didn't necessarily like want to go on it all the time. But when I got bored, I was like, okay, let me just check Instagram. Let me see what X, Y, and Z are doing, you know. And at the end of the day, like I didn't need any of that, you know. I was just doing it because it was out of habit. So
I like that you said, like, there's a few things you said right there. Like, one, what content are you consuming, or just what are you consuming in life in general? I think a part of battling mental health is being aware of what you're consuming, because it does affect your mind state. The types of songs you listen to, the types of shows you watch, the type of people you hang around, what they talk about, if they're always negative, it brings negativity to you. And your mind is not meant to bear that negativity. Two, what you're saying, you and John saying, like, make it normal to take time away from social media and enjoy life. Get out into the real world.
Touch grass.
Yeah,
Touch grass.
Touch some grass, man. Talk to somebody in person. Like, I feel like nowadays people don't know how to communicate with people because everything is happening digitally, but you need to know how to communicate with people because we were made to be relational. And then also just taking time to take care of you. It's okay to not be worried about everybody else. Sometimes you do got to take time to make sure you're okay instead of taking on the world's burdens. I think about what John said with Takeoff and just social media in general. Like, how many people's burdens are you carrying that have nothing to do with you? Like, that's not even your burden to carry, but you're carrying it anyways because it was projected on you. And so now you're carrying that along with everything else that you have going on yourself personally. But a lot of times you tend to take what you have going on personally and push that to the side for other people, which is okay for a time being. But if you consistently do that, eventually what you're going to is going to boil up to the surface. You're not going to know what to do, and you're not going to know how to handle that.
See, I was going to say, like, a lot of this comes from self-awareness. A lot of people don't necessarily monitor their thought processes. They don't like being alone. And I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but at the same time, I don't think it's the healthiest if you can't be alone, if you can't understand what you're going through and the reason why you don't like your thought processes late at night. It's like there's stuff that you have to heal from. And if you're constantly running from that, then it's like you won't make any progression into not having, you know what I'm saying, such as bad a mental state, because your thoughts are really a key indicator of your perspective on life. Your thoughts are going to really see, like, it's going to dictate your outlook. And if you haven't paid attention to, like, oh, why am I depressed? What is causing my depression? What is this negative outlook coming from? What are these negative thoughts doing in my head? Why are they just staying there without me doing anything? Then your outlook on life is going to be negative. It all starts with your thoughts. And then if you're not filtering what's coming in, then you can't expect to, you know what I'm saying, have the best mental state positive, because you're just letting anything come into your mind, good or bad.
Right. That's good. Yeah, and it's so true. I was watching this TikTok, and this girl was explaining that exact concept, how your thoughts affect your reality. And she was just like, I was overweight, I was depressed, and I was just in my room. You know, I just would go out on the weekends and drink and go clubbing. And then she's like, I realized, like, it was my mental. Like, I started listening to motivational speakers, reading books, and then I started working out. And just like by me changing my thought process, it literally changed my reality. And there's a quote, it's like, your thoughts affect your actions, and your actions affect how your life is going to turn out. So something like that, right?
Yep. It's your thoughts become your actions become your habits become your lifestyle.
So true. Yeah. So and another thing, we're raised to be selfless, but I saw a person say you have to become selfish before you can become selfless. Like, you got to take care of yourself first, because if you're not okay, how are you going to be helping all these other people you say you want to help out? So that's why it's important to go seek help. And Eric sent me a podcast today of someone talking about the importance of therapy, because it can be such a taboo topic. I was watching a show today, and then this woman was like telling this man, you need to go see a therapist. And he was like, I don't need no shrink, you know? Like, I feel like that's a topic people like.
It's like a negative connotation to it.
Like, I don't want no shrink. I don't want no therapist. I'm not mentally insane. But she was saying that, like, it's just like the physical, right? You go to the doctor to take care of your physical. You got to go to a therapist to take care of your mind. It's like along those same thing.
Understanding that your body is a whole thing. Spirit, soul, body is not one without the other. Like, all three things must be in alignment. And that's why, like, we really say we want to take a holistic approach to life, because we understand that when one thing is out of line, it affects everything else. If I'm not right spiritually, if I'm not right physically, if I'm not right mentally, if I'm not right financially, if I'm not right socially, it affects my whole way of life. It affects my mind. It affects my relationships. It affects everything. So
Can y'all talk about y'all mindset or your mind state during the time when you noticed that your mental health was bad? And like what y'all did, what was going on at the time, and how you guys kind of worked through that?
it was, for me personally, like one of my like lowest moments is like, I got really sick when I was in school, and I also had got injured the week before, so I was out of football because of that, and then I got really sick the next week and was out again. And it was during a time where I felt like it's like finally my time to shine, because I've been working and grinding, and COVID had took away a season. Finally got a season back, and in the middle of it, had to deal with that. And so honestly, it's just like you start thinking about everything else negative during that time, and it's like it all piles on at one time. And then for me, during moments like that, it's like an intense pressure on the mind. I don't know how to really explain it besides that. And it can be like a heavy weight at times too. You can make yourself shut off from the world. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to process. You kind of want to find anything to make you not think about it, so you can find yourself, just binge eating or binge watching shows, or just doing anything to like not put your mind on it. And so for me to get out of that, it required me asking for help, because I didn't know how to help myself. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to do, is ask for help when you can't help yourself. And honestly, I think I'm just not getting to the point where I'm really able to fully do that. So getting around a healthy community, getting in therapy, and then of course increasing my spiritual life, being in the word and prayer and stuff like that. All that goes hand in hand, right? So just asking for help when you can't help yourself is the biggest thing. But becoming aware and telling myself, oh, it's okay that I feel like this, and giving myself grace, like Jordan talked about earlier, is huge. Because a lot of times the way that you can be raised, like, you shouldn't even feel this way. And so now because I feel this way, now I don't know how I should really feel, because I'm conflicted. I feel this way, but my mind is telling me I shouldn't feel this way. And so now I'm trying to convince myself that I really don't feel this way. And that's like that constant war going back and forth.
I think that's something I became good at. It's just like convincing myself I don't feel a certain way, and just like moving past it, not really processing it, and just trying to like focus my attention, my energy on something else that's not what's bothering me, So I put it into like schoolwork and my career and social media. But I feel like me too, I'm now kind of learning how to process things in a more healthy way. To answer your question, whenever I like felt like really low, recently I've been realizing the importance in community. So like when I was back at school, like actually surrounding myself with people, because I'm someone who I'm very independent. I feel like we live in like a very independent culture. Everyone wants to be independent. Like, I'm on my own, I'm taking care of myself,
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much power in community. There's like even being around people who make you laugh, Laughter is needed. In like, now that I'm back home, like I feel like we're opening up to each other more, having like conversations as a family as a whole, and even with each other. And that's just like so healthy, just not to just bury everything down and hold it in by yourself.
That's fire, because that's kind of like the same thing for me, the community aspect. Going into my freshman year, that was probably the worst time for me.
Yeah, John was down in the trenches.
And one thing I want to say too, like, don't have a struggle Olympics with people that you're around. One thing that I had to learn is how to not invalidate people's feelings. Like, there's a balance in like telling somebody they're tripping, but also understanding what they're going through is impacting them in a real way. And somebody's always going to have it worse. So your goal in saying like, this is what really affected me, this is what impacted me, shouldn't be, oh, I had it worse than you. So for me, it was like freshman year, I didn't have any friends going into college. Like, I just graduated high school. So going into college, I lost all my previous friends. I was on a new campus. I was in an environment that I wasn't comfortable with. I went from a private school, which was predominantly white, to an HBCU, which was around mostly black people. And it was weird feeling like you didn't belong in your own culture, because I just didn't feel like I had the right upbringing. So then there was that.
It was like a whole like loss of identity almost.
Yeah.
That's real, though.
It is very real. That's something that I continue to grow in, is like that identity piece. But I was doing ROTC at the time, and they said, hey, you can't have less than a 1/4 inch of bulk on your hair. I don't know what that means. Well, that sounds to me like I can have like an inch of hair. I don't know what a 1/4. Anyways,
Like a buzz cut or something.
Something. I go to my barber. Mind you, my hair is the longest it had ever been at this point. It wasn't that long, but it was long, and I was really excited, bro. Go to the barber, I get shaved bald. Now I'm looking like Black Caillou. I'm looking like Lil Bill. You know what I'm saying? So my self-esteem was super shot, and I just remember going like day by day, like it was a cycle. Like I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be on campus. My dad and my mom, they would come home every day asking me if I had any friends. I'm like, no. And then COVID hit not much longer after in my freshman year. So it was just like a lot of time spent isolated, truly figuring out who I was aside from the community I had grew up with, aside from my brothers. And so I spent a lot of time. I actually was cleaning up my room today and found my first journal from 2020, like my very first journal entry ever. And I was like, wow. And I spent a lot of time journaling. I spent a lot of time developing, growing myself spiritually, because that was a very big push for me. That was a very big help. And then calling people, because it was COVID, like being around y'all, it definitely helped me a lot to get out of the funk that I was in. So
yeah, I think it's important. What you're saying is being around people, but also to check on your friends, because you never know what someone's going through. So some of the best conversations I appreciate is when someone's like, hey, how's your mental? You know, I feel like that can be like a loaded question sometimes, because sometimes you don't even process and you're like, wait, how is my mental going? But
Right.
I think it's so important when you know, those friends that you have, to just check on them, see how they're doing, because even when they seem like they're all right, sometimes people are just carrying so much that you don't even realize.
Also, like if you see somebody, especially if it's like your friend and you know them, and they start acting out of character, don't take that personally, and don't start physically attacking them. Like, take a step back and be like, they must be going through something, and they must be coming to the surface, and they don't know how to deal with it, and so they're projecting that on you. Like, I know it's cliche, but hurt people really do hurt people, and so it takes a special kind of friend to be able to endure that and help somebody through that. Because a lot of times when people are going through what they're going through, what happens is that people take it personally and they end up pushing back. And then now, you know, a whole relationship is severed. And then you can convince yourself, oh, they was tripping, I don't need them. And then the other person can convince themselves, I don't need them. But it's really like, yo, I was struggling and I didn't know how to ask for help. And my only way of asking for help is lashing out.
I would say age does not equal maturity, and adulthood does not mean that you've healed from childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And so the older you get, it doesn't take away the fact that when they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is a perpetuated lie. That one thing that was said to you in second grade by that one girl or that one teacher can stick with you for the rest of your life. And not dealing with that could surface up much later. It could be a bunch of small issues that pile up into one explosive moment. And then you're like, why did I explode? Or other people are like, why did I explode? But to you, it makes sense. It's like, I've always heard this thing, and now you're saying it, and da-da-da-da-da. And now they're left confused because they don't know what's going on in your personal life. That communication piece, that therapy piece, that getting help about things that have affected you as a child, and not dissociating, which is what I do. I disconnect myself from situations, and I have to stop doing that. I have to process it. Or like you said, you shut down and you suppress it internally. Like these negative ways that we deal with coping that we think is sweeping it under the rug, but next thing you know, you have a mound under your rug, and when it's uncovered, you're like, dang, this is a mess.
Like, it's still there.
It's still there.
Like the podcast I sent Jordan was with Dr. Anita Phillips. And one thing she said, that if a response is hysterical, then it's historical.
Okay,
so,
go ahead and break that down for us.
Like hysterical, like it's out of the ordinary, which means that it's historical. So like what John was saying, it's a bunch of little things that happen along the way that led to this big outlash. Like nobody just explodes at one point. Like that doesn't just happen. It's a lot of stuff that leads up to that point before you break. You know, everybody has a tipping point, a boiling point. And so like what John said, if you're not going and dealing with the things that hurt you and not dealing with the pain points when it happened and where it happened, then you carry that with you. You carry those scars with you. And then you go through another experience in life, and guess what? It triggers the same feeling. It triggers the same memories as the first time you felt that when you was a kid, or when you was growing up, or when you was in a certain situation in the past. And so now you're projecting what happened in the past into your present. And that's like one of my lines in my poem is like, my past is projecting my present, because it's like what happened in the past is causing me to react a certain way presently because I didn't deal with what happened in the past. And so I'm still carrying that with me. But like I said earlier too, like, you know, writing it down, going to therapy, talking about it, processing it in healthy ways. Like once I did that, now my past was no longer a part of me. I felt like I was detached from that. And so now it's up to me to decide how I'm just going to move forward going forward.
I think this conversation is so real because I feel like this is what we've been doing recently, is just kind of like processing our past. And like, it makes you more self-aware because sometimes you don't really realize, why do you act like this? You know, like sometimes I just like withdraw to my room, don't want to talk to anybody, but I'm like, why do I do that? That's not necessarily healthy. It's just like recognize it. Okay, maybe it was from this instance I learned this way. And as you guys are saying, like one way that you can kind of like figure yourself out is through therapy. And I know you two have been going and having been encouraging me to go. So I just like am grateful that this conversation is open, you know?
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like this hasn't been talked about in our family.
Even if
Like
you're
before this year.
Facts. I would say even if you're self-aware, the benefit of journaling or therapy is actually processing things. Because it's like, yeah, I did this and I went through this and now I'm here. But it's like you might not have actually processed how you felt. Like you start talking about it and it's like, oh, snap, this is deeper than I really intended it to be. So I have a mentor and he's also a psychiatrist. He's a therapist. And so I kind of get 2 in 1. And I originally didn't go to him for like a therapy session, but he was just asking me questions because that's his nature. And he started like exposing things that I didn't even necessarily think were that big of a deal. But the more I talk about it, the more I realize, okay, this is actually has impacted me in a way that I didn't expect.
Yeah, I think that's good. Just like realizing like the impact of things that happen from your past. And it's funny because I feel like any mentor has to become like a therapist in some type of way. Are we still going? Yeah, I feel like any mentor has to become like a therapist in some type of way because they kind of have to get to the root of why you're acting, and that's how they can help you out. So it's important that you have people that you can be like open and honest with and that you can trust, because I feel like you can't trust everybody, but it's important that you find that one person that you can really trust, and you know they have their your best intentions in mind. I think that's really important. And even like within family and like friendships, just creating a safe zone to openly express yourself, to listen. We have something in ministry called SALT, and that start a conversation, ask a question, listen, then talk. So finding people who will actually ask you questions, listen to you, and then talk after, I think that's so important, rather than, you know, someone just, you know, just talk at you, because sometimes we're the ones who kind of need to talk and express ourselves. So, yeah.
And another thing I want to say is that when you find yourself processing, don't intellectualize the experience. Allow yourself to feel emotionally. So a lot of times we can get good at like saying, oh yeah, I went through this and then this happened, and so I responded because this happened like this. How did you feel? How did that make you feel? Yeah, write that down.
And I feel like this is something you've been learning recently because you're very intellectual. So like,
oh yeah, for sure. Like write that down and then talk about that. Talk about how it made you feel throughout that process, right? So I want you guys to really take time to really self-reflect. Give yourself grace. Know that you're not alone in this fight and in this journey. I really want to say thank you for listening to us and being a friend to us, because we were being very vulnerable to you guys right now. And so, like, for us, it's really important that we share our experiences, because we know that there's power in community. There's power in not feeling alone. And we want you guys to know that if you felt alone, if you felt like you didn't have anybody, if you felt like you didn't have a friend, well, now you found one.
And with that said, I kind of want to open up a space in the comment section for you guys to just kind of like let us a mental check-in. Let us know how you're feeling, because as we say, we're your friends and we truly care about you. We don't want to just say we care about you and not hear you out. So leave us a comment. Let us know how you're feeling, and we'll be responding and sending our encouragement and our support and our love, because you truly are our friends. So.